Hello, everybody. Welcome to our 20th webinar of 2024 for calibration marketing. Today, we're joined by BrainRobotics, who is helping us kind of close out the year, and we'll get to learn a little bit about BrainRobotics, their product line, which is the Kneuro Knee from Steve and Brian. But before we do that, I just wanted to kind of give a hurrah and a cheers to all of the various manufacturers and clinicians and just thought leaders and solutions providers within the O&P industry that joined me this year. Like I said, we've had 20 webinars. You can see all of them on both LinkedIn and YouTube if you look up calibration marketing. In total, there was about 18 manufacturers, and then we had a slew of users that joined us as well and talked about their experience with prosthetics or without, which was 27 guests in total, which is incredible. And again, on YouTube, we had roughly 600 views thus far. So hopefully you'll join for some future webinars coming up next year. But without further ado, I'm going to invite Brian Long onto today's webcast, who is the president of BrainRobotics, a friend and former colleague. So I'm super stoked to have you on. Share a little bit about how you got into O&P, your background, anything that before we jump into the larger conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Linda, for having us on. It's been great to know you over the last 2 years and work with you early on through this venture at BrainRobotics. So I actually got into the prosthetic industry back in 2011. I sat down with a gentleman by the name of Tom Doherty, who had been at Autobach for around 20 years, over 20 years at the time. He was a mentor and worked with Tom for some time. Before that, I was in various medical sales. So I was with a company called Globus Medical, doing spine devices in the OR. And the biggest difference, I think, between prosthetics and OR sales was that the patients are awake. And so you get to spend some time with the patients, you get to know the patients. And in this industry, you really need to be a part of the community to be successful. And I think that happens naturally if you spend enough time in the industry. And so I've been in the industry now for about 12 years, 13 years. And largely, my dad was a veteran. My stepdad was a veteran. And so working with the VA, being able to work with these patients, that's what really interested me in the beginning. And here we are 12 years later.
Yeah. And a lot has changed. So much has changed in that time. So I'm sure you've seen some things happen that maybe were just a conversation at one point, which is exciting. Next, I'll bring on Steve, who I also have the pleasure of knowing, and we worked together for a short time, but you've been instrumental in helping bring this product from BrainRobotics to the market. But before we jump into that, can you share a little bit about your background within O&P or otherwise?
I came into O&P about 7 going on 8 years now. After a several years stint in the consumer goods space doing product management and sales. And even before that, right out of college, I was in a durable medical equipment sales rep role as I mentioned, right out of college for a number of years for a company called The Scooter Store, which was formerly based here in Central Texas. Some folks might recall the Jazzy scooters or the power wheelchairs that we saw on Price is Right, commercial breaks, things like that. So it was a big company. I went away from the medical device space for a while, as I mentioned, into consumer goods. And you see it there. I had an opportunity years back to join at Autobach as a market manager, managing a number of different prosthetics portfolios. So I jumped at that, just really seeing the need and want to get back into a professional space where we're helping folks on a really profound level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in prosthetics, helping restore mobility or having folks get back to their daily activities is so very important. So that's close to my heart and keeps me coming to work every day. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah. No, I think we can all echo the same sentiment of we all do this for the same reasons of just wanting to help people and get the information out there, whether it be, marketing information or actual products, and making sure that they're actually appropriate for those that need them. So it's definitely an industry that's close to all of our hearts, and I'm sure everybody listening in as well. And if there's any questions, we welcome them to stream in, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. But let's kind of jump into BrainRobotics and the evolution that happened there over the last year, 2 years, and kind of where things are now before we jump into learning a little bit more about the Kneuro Knee and the MPK market, which is a bit foreign to me as well, and maybe to some of those listening that are just finding themselves in this journey. But if you could just share a little bit more about Brain Robotics so that people know where to find you guys, how to interact with you, and so on.
Yeah, I can jump in. Steve, if you have anything to add, please jump in. So I had heard about Brain Robotics in 2019. There was a Time magazine cover in Linda. I believe you were with Brain Robotics at the time.
No, not yet, but that was an exciting when I saw that too. Yeah.
It was the buzz. So we were all, shooting this back and forth. Like, who is this new company? What's going on? And I think it was Invention of the Year, something like that, Time magazine. So that was my first exposure to Brain Robotics. Fast forward to about January of 2023, Dr. Hahn had approached me about a position that Brain Robotics at the time. I had been with my previous company for about 12 years. At first we had talked for probably 3 or 4 months, and he had this hand that he wanted to open up in the U.S. market and launch. Looking at the research, looking at the company, doing some research on it, really prevalent in the brain machine interface aspects. They had a ton of information on BMI. They had MIT written algorithms. And then Dr. Hahn is a PhD from Harvard. The academia was very impressive. And I think they needed some experience on the team directly involved with the commercial activities of the industry. They had the marketing experience with you, Linda, at least when I got on. And then really the other half of that was that commercial market experience. And so after 2 or 3 months, I had agreed to come on, and then we opened up in Austin. Here we are a year and a half later. We were really focused on the hand at first, as it was known in the industry. It had been out for a little while, but really couldn't get, from the engineering aspect, the hand at a level that I thought would compete early on in the industry with the 18 companies that had launched an MA hand in a very small part of the industry. Very important, but very small part of the industry. And so unless we could compete at that level, we weren't interested in launching the product quite yet.
Yeah, no, totally fair.
So, Steve, I don't know if you have anything to add to that as far as, how we got to where we are, but
yeah.
So sort of that point, the hand and where we're looking at the portion that upper limb is within the O&P business. We just kind of vetted out and did a little bit of our homework and made a decision to pivot, at least for time being, where there's some more opportunities to grow within the industry and help as many end users as possible right away. And for that, that's coming out in the form of Neuro, and it's been pretty impactful over the first couple of months of product availability. It's not to say we won't revisit or shift some focus back to an upper limb product at some point in time. It was just kind of an engineering and market necessity decision that in kind of our infancy stage of the company as we go to market.
Yeah, and you got to get your wins, right? And I think so far, at least from what I've seen, and I saw you guys at AOPA and, you know, online and that sort of thing, and everybody that I talked to, users were really raving about the knee. And so I guess let's kind of unravel that. I really don't know much about the MPK market, and we don't have to, you know, go down any particular rabbit holes, but what matters within that space? Like what do users look for or should consider if they need this type of device?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll kind of go down, you know, how does the Kneuro Knee answer that, or how is it better than, or like what are its features and things like that that should be known?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want me to jump in here real quick, Brian, to at least start?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, for starters, if we're talking to an end user, of course, with this being a microprocessor knee, we're talking about our transfemoral or above knee amputees. Can be fit with the device itself if we start there. And then microprocessor knees across the board are meant to be an alternative to very common manual knees, mechanical knees that are out there in the space, and they're an alternative in that they offer additional stability, energy savings. They help prevent falls on an additional level. So things like that.
Energy saving for the user, like in terms of how they walk, or
right.
Okay.
Energy savings for the user throughout the day. So you can generally think across the board when comparing a microprocessor knee to a mechanical knee. If we're looking at use throughout the day for an end user, we get to the end of the day, we're ready to sit down or go to bed. They might be feeling potentially not as exhausted or worn out throughout the day because of the use of the microprocessor knee. There's a hydraulic that aids in the walk and gait cycles. And then a number of different gyroscopes and sensors that aid and adjust for an end user's tasks and activities to help make those as easy and safe as possible, whereas it might not be the case with a mechanical knee.
Okay.
Yeah, just if I could add something on there, you know, I think that you asked what the most important thing is about a microprocessor knee. I think it can boil down to safety. And so these knees have stumble recovery. They have the ability to lock in place when the knee flexes beyond a certain point. This prevents falls. We're able to do this through the algorithm. The algorithm was written by an MIT PhD in a support group. But it does lock in place. There's no ankle moment sensor in this knee, so it's very lightweight distally.
Okay.
And then it's been known to walk easier than some of the other knees on the market within its class. And I would say, you know, Linda, you'd said that you're hearing a lot about patients that like this knee. I think that's where we're hearing that is that it's easier to walk. And so as far as what was important to us in the development of this knee, I think, you know, it started last June. The knee was huge. It did not look like it was ready for the market anytime soon. And the engineers have done a great job of reducing the size, reducing the weight, getting this knee ready for the market. And so it has all the features, I think, that are important to an amputee as far as going upstairs, walking over obstacles, the stumble recovery, and then a very practical, useful app that you can program on as well as use from the patient's perspective.
Okay. And so from an app standpoint, is both the user and clinician have an app, and there are obviously probably some settings that a user can't change just from a safety perspective, and they need to see their clinician for. Is that how it works for in this case as well?
Yep. So it's one app with,
okay, gotcha.
We'll call it two portals essentially, right?
Mm.
With different access levels for
Yeah.
you. So you can think of the clinician level set up to, of course, do the initial fitting and alignment for our end users, to access various different modes that are available within Neuro that are deemed appropriate for an end user. And then they can also do some monitoring and troubleshooting through their side of the portal. And then if you go and you look at the user or the patient side of the app in terms of their access, it's to monitor the knee itself. You could look at battery life, your step count for a given period of time. You can cycle through your modes on the app there. But once again, if we go back to modes, those are only selectable on the user patient side of things with the OK and set up on the clinician portal. It's more of a monitor and kind of a secondary remote that can be used for cycling through modes, whereas you also have the opportunity to physically do that on the Kneuro Knee itself.
Okay. And maybe it's not anything that's novel, but it's worth the question. With it being able to gather information like step count, can that also lead to outcome measures of some degree of knowing like how frequently that user is mobile and, high and low days and that sort of thing? Because obviously outcome measures is a huge conversation topic within the industry. So is there a way to maybe kind of aid in that through this?
So there's firewalls in place where we don't have access to the patient's data in that fashion. Of course,
just for the clinician to know.
Clinician can go back and look and refine outcome measures however they please because they have access to that. We're doing a lot of work around outcome measures internally here with some of our partners. And that's, of course, through other information workthroughs and avenues that are deemed appropriate by FDA, HIPAA, all that fun stuff.
Right. Okay. And then from you talked about safety and stumble recovery. What are some, let's say somebody has just had an above knee amputation. What are some of the questions to ask? I guess maybe one of them is, what K level is this type of knee appropriate for, and where do they fall in as an individual, and what kind of their options are depending on who they are?
Yeah. So to start with K level, that's established with the clinician and interaction with the user. Of course, they've got some input to a point there. And with Neuro, we are K2, 3, and K4.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah.
Changes now.
Yeah. Yes, especially with us going into 2025 and Medicare reimbursement opening up to that K2 space. So we fit that profile also with our safety features and everything that Brian had touched on earlier with the stumble recovery, things of that nature.
Okay. Yeah. And then in terms of reimbursement, how does that look for all involved parties, user, clinician, payer? I'm assuming there's L codes that are tied to this product as well.
There's 6 different L codes associated with this product as a microprocessor knee and the various feature sets within. And those L codes are defined by Medicare through the reimbursement guidelines. And with that, I think starting as early as maybe May of this year, we got a PDAC approval.
Awesome.
What that is assurance to our customers and our end users that following Medicare guidelines that our private insurers also generally tag along with. Yeah. If appropriate documentation is filed, there should be no issues getting reimbursement with Neuro.
Okay.
Now that's a certification that is not required for any microprocessor knees, but with the way the market's going, I think it's essential for success and this idea that you can count on the product long term. So we have that in place, and that's kind of an additional assurance upfront and throughout the reimbursement process to our clinicians, the customers, and end users that you have a need that's been reviewed at the highest level for quality and features such, especially in regard to safety, that you can count on this need.
Sure. Yeah. And then I guess from a clinician standpoint, and probably to some degree user, when it comes to technical support and loaners and things like that, where do things stand for BrainRobotics when it comes to if there is a need to send something in? Is it, and I don't know, is it something that could be field serviceable? Is it something that always needs to go into Texas? Or like how does that whole experience work? Obviously, all of us strive for a white glove service. So like, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah.
I feel like this was an opportunity in the market to focus on, and so like our goal is really to have the mindset of our work begins once we sell a product, and we support the product 100%. And so if the product needs to come back, it would come back into Austin. We would do whatever requirements are to get the need back, and we'll service the need, get it back to the patient in a very short turnaround. Right now, as far as loaners, we haven't had the need for loaners. We have around 600 people total on the knee.
Oh, wow.
And at this point, we've done exchanges if we've had issues. We want to be very easy to work with. And so that most likely won't be long-term as we're in the market longer and longer. There could be an increased need for loaners as needs age. But right now, our goal is to be the easiest to work with pre and post sale.
I mean, that's huge. That's a lot of market data. Good on you guys. That's a hell of a year. I guess what's the feedback that you're hearing from both clinicians and users in general in terms of what they're liking specifically? We don't have to, like I said earlier, we don't have to name names of, this is better than so-and-so, but like, what are people kind of hanging their hats on? Is it that stability and the ease of working with your teams, or what's the secret sauce?
I think what I've heard comments on here recently is really the customer service, our ability to put our arms around the customers and make sure that we're sharing in the process of fitting their patient, and doing everything we can to empower them to have a good experience for their patients. And so that weighs on us to make sure that we can deliver on that. And then the knee's ease of walking. Like, so when I back up and I look at what we're the best at, and I truly believe that we're the best in the industry at algorithms and in creating these algorithms that can incredibly change the way that a mechanical device works. And so the algorithms are when the duration of a valve closing, when it closes, how far it closes. And we're able to play with these algorithms to a degree that we can really control finite aspects of how a knee works. And I think that's what I would say differentiates us from some of the other companies in the market. And with that, we want to continually improve the app, the user interface on the app, the functions of the app. And then, I had a question come up a long time ago of, are you a prosthetic company or a amputee company? And I truly believe that we're an amputee company, and that we'll look to innovate outside of just prosthetics. And that was a goal of mine from the beginning. And I think that we have a lot of technology and a few things right now in development that could really support the industry outside of a specific device or a mechanical device, wearable device. So we'll try to focus on both of those areas.
And I agree with Brian there that's the primary differentiator that we're bringing to the market right now. That's not to say some more novel features that we offer within the set of Neuro don't move the needle, at least early on. You brought up the app. Our clinicians now in 2024, they love app-based programming. It's becoming the standard across the industry when you're talking about microprocessor products. And then we've got some things that really stand out and make us unique that move the needle, at least early on. If you look at product specs, we offer USB-C charging. So if you've got...
I've seen people rave about that. Yeah.
Right. So you're not having to use any type of special product specific adapter. We do send a charger within the box as part of scope of delivery. But we also offer the opportunity, use an iPhone charger or an Android charger. The 20 USB-C chargers you got laying around the house will work just fine with this. And then, we've got a 5-day battery life with the product too. So that's huge. For the most part, double compared to what we're seeing within the industry. There are some premium end MPKs that get close to that 5-day battery life also. But I think we're bringing it into a space where a lot of folks are playing within the market of microprocessor knees.
So how do, I guess as we kind of close things out, how do people get this device? Is it going directly through BrainRobotics, which, people can learn more about on BrainRobotics.com, but is it reaching out to your sales team? How are things going now, and what are you kind of building up towards?
Yeah, I think so. Social media, you can contact us on social media on the website, and we have a 1-800 number. We have contact information on there. Also, we have a sales force right now. We are growing our sales force. We have some open positions as well, and we're looking at a few key areas for that. So please, if you're interested, jump on the website as well. There's some information on there.
Awesome.
But right now we are in 18 states, and so we have patients wearing the product, and then we look to be in all 50 states by mid-year next year. And so the product is available. It was launched in September, and then patients have been on the product since last year. And so we have about 1.5 years of experience with patients on the same bones of the product.
Yeah. And I know that was one of the things that you really wanted to hammer home, Brian, when you came on, is getting this thing on people so you can really get that user feedback and market feedback, which I think is critical to any product success, because you can make the coolest thing, but nobody wants it, or it just doesn't answer the need. It may as well just be in a closet where, which is not what we want. But is there anything that you guys want to add before we end today's conversation? But I don't see any questions that have come up either. But the floor is yours to close things out.
Yeah, to Brian's point, if folks are interested, be it a clinician or our customers, patients, or end users, reach out to us on our social medias, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or BrainRobotics.com, or call into the 800 number. However those requests come in, we will tap the appropriate sales rep that cover your home area. There's also a clinical staff in place here that we are also growing that can support and facilitate trial needs, fitting needs, anything of that nature also.
That's awesome. No, thank you guys for hopping on today. I know it's close to the end of the year, almost the end of the month, and everybody's scrambling, but I think it was important to have this conversation. And someone asked, are trial knees available for demo? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's an important one. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for helping me close out the year and being my 20th guests. We'll pick things back up next year with IBT, who actually has their own webinar coming up. I think it's later this week, so check out their website and their LinkedIns as well. But thank you guys. Have a great rest of your year. And I'm going to watch you guys crush it.
Thanks so much, Linda.
Yeah, thanks,
Have a
Linda.
good one. Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Okay.